Coach, can you talk about your level of anticipation and excitement as you get ready for the new year?
Yeah, you bet. Every new year is exciting because every group is different. Personally, I feel like we have a wonderful opportunity to be really good this year. You know, we have to have some good fortune. We've got to work hard and develop some of our skill sets, but I feel like we have the talent to go get on the field and do what we need to do for our team to be successful. So that, to me, anytime we've got those factors in place, is always exciting.
Do you have to be careful about what they read and hear?
I think in this day and age, how do you be careful about what you're reading here? It's in front of your face 24/7. I think more than being careful about what you're reading here, and maybe the way you're saying that's right, I mean, is just filtering out and not listening to too much. And maybe sometimes too little. You know, sometimes those things can be motivation. Sometimes they, you know, if you listen to too much, you start to focus on things that are outside of your control. So I think the thing is yes, just always keep what you're hearing and what you're giving access to your thoughts to make sure that stays inside of your control and you can get done on a daily basis.
What's the best thing about your club now?
Well, I think the best thing that I've seen over the last 4 or 5 months is just the camaraderie, is the kind of team spirit. You know, coming from the bowl game until now, that's kind of carried over, that feeling where guys are in it for each other, and they're playing for the guy next to them. And to me, that's the #1 most important thing you can have on a team.
Josh, Lincoln mentioned in just that you know, this was kind of the year that you guys, from a development standpoint, you know, needed to move away from the portal, and this was the year to kind of trust the development. In terms of looking at where you guys were in the spring portal, was that kind of the emphasis in terms of standing pat, like trusting in the development? Do you feel like those guys are ready for that, and the younger guys?
It's time to get them ready, right? I mean, at some point you're going to take young guys and say it's time for that guy to make the jump, to make the leap to where he's performing at a level that's good enough for us to go win championships. And so that's why they call us coach. That's why the guys came here. That's why we recruited them here. So yeah, we've got to make all those things happen. But yes, we've got some young guys that we feel good about, but we've certainly got work to do to go make that happen.
Do you remember having a 2 deep this young before?
No.
How much confidence, despite having all these new players, obviously a different quarterback this year, how much confidence can you pull scheme-wise out of what you were able to accomplish offensively last year?
Well, I think from a scheme standpoint, I mean, we do what we do. What Coach Riley runs and what we run on offense is something that, you know, there's 80 to 90% of that's going to be based to what we do. So I think the confidence you get is from repetition, repping those things over and over and over again so that you can go on the field and execute them against all the things that you see from defenses today. So our guys get a lot of reps. We work a lot on not only base looks, but, you know, blitz looks and all those things. So I think when our guys step on the field, they're very confident in what they're getting ready to go execute.
Is there any confidence from the production that you were able to put up offensively last year?
Well, for sure, but every year it's new. I mean, there's new guys. We're going to have 2 or 3 new guys starting in the O-line this year. There's going to be new guys that we're counting on at receiver to be an every down guy. Some of those guys made some spectacular plays last year, but they weren't the every down guy. So that consistency that comes with doing that every day, I think, is that's why you practice, you know, and that's where we're headed. But I think every year's new, and you got to go out every year, and you can't really. It's funny. Every year in football necessarily doesn't relate to the year before or the year after. We've all seen players who had good years and then they have a bad year. Players who had bad years, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, where'd this guy come from? He's having a great year." So every year is different, and you have to have that sense of urgency. Go out every year, and make sure you're performing at a certain level to win.
Josh, when was it that you noticed the light really went out for Elijah?
You know, I thought about week 10 or 11 last year. You know, it's a funny story with Elijah. He was down with us on our end working as the 2 left tackle. And, you know, credit to Coach Riley on this. We just were a little bit frustrated, like, with his progression. We felt like he got to a certain spot. He came along well, and then he was just kind of plateaued. And Coach Riley, you know, and some of those things were just a little bit more physical presence, that when you're young, learning the intensity that it takes on every play at this level to be good. And so his suggestion was, let's send him a scout team. And in week 6 or 7, he went to scout team, and he came back week 10 or 11, and he was a different player because, you know, down there on scout team, the defensive line's trying to, you know, they're trying to beat you up on every play. So, and they're trying to bully you and throw you around, and you have 2 choices: you can take it, or you can fight and get better, and grow. And he chose to grow. And when he came back, then that's when I really noticed. I was like, oh, okay, his game's starting to progress to another level, to where you saw him play in a bowl game and play pretty well.
Could you break down the right guard competition going into camp?
Yeah, you know, at this point, we've got several candidates there. Amos, Talalele, Alani Noah, Gino Quinones, who's a returning guy that's played for us. Micah Banuelos, who's a young guy also. But those are guys that have been in the program. You know, I wouldn't even discount seeing Tobias Raymond in there at some point, maybe, if that was something that presented itself. So there's a lot of competition there. We're going to rep a lot of guys. We plan out all of our reps. There's going to be a lot of guys get opportunity, and that's going to be up to them to decide that competition on the practice field.
How's Gino's
Fairly wide open.
Fairly wide open, yes.
How's Gino's progression health-wise?
Getting better, getting close. I think we get pretty limited views coaching staff-wise. Obviously, we rely on our strength staff and our training staff because they're with them just about every day in the summer, but we get pretty limited views of those guys summertime-wise. So I think when we get back out here in the next couple days, back out on field, we'll get a better feel for that. But I know Gino's told me that he feels like he's getting close, but there's still going to be, we still need to make sure we're smart here at the first of his progression, but I think he's close.
Will he rep at center this camp too? Or?
Oh yeah, Gino's an older guy that knows the offense, knows how to identify things and get everybody heading in the right direction. So he'll be repping center also.
You see right tackle right now in terms of Mason. I know you said Tobias.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's Mason, there's Tobias, there's Justin Tanu. Those are the guys that are in that position. We picked up a new guy, Erwin Taomi, who's we think is pretty talented. He's kind of a diamond in the rough, kind of out of nowhere, but we've had an opportunity to see him work live and in person. We're pretty impressed. So we'll see where that goes. And again, you know, there's some young guys there that gotta improve their game and step up, be ready to go if their number gets called.
What is it about Erwin that excites you?
I'm sorry?
What's the thing about Erwin that kind of excites you?
Size, skill, speed, foot movement. There's a lot of things. I mean, I mean, you watch him in person and he's got a lot of potential. So we got to see where he's at on the football field. He's had limited football exposure up to this point, but I certainly think he has tools to get it done, and I like his demeanor.
Coach, is there a different approach to this season entering a conference?
No, I've been through this before. When we were at Missouri and went from the Big 12 to SEC, you know, listen, football's football. It is what it is. The guy in front of you is the guy in front of you. I would tell you, having coached in the SEC, the Big 12, and the Pac-12 these last 2 seasons was dang good. I mean, you could put them up. I mean, one of the teams ended up in the national championship. So, you know, football's ball. It's not about the other team. It's about what you do. And we got to go out and put our best product on the field every day, and we'll be fine.
One player doesn't make a team, but with the kind of presence that Caleb had on his team the last 2 years, how do you approach sort of building on what you did there, but also kind of moving on from him in some ways as an offense? Yeah,
I think it just gets back to every year's new, you know, so now certain players, not only Caleb, but we have other players that are gone you know, Justin Dedich is gone, you know, and he's been a really good player for us for the last 2 years. So someone has to come in and fill that role at the quarterback spot. You know, we anticipate that's Miller, and certainly did a great job in the bowl game. And you know, you just go out there and you prepare, you work, you go out every day and put yourself through a process of getting ready to go play at your high, you know, at the best level that you can. And I know it sounds cliche, but that's just what it is. I mean, there's really no magic to it. It's just work and going out and doing it.
When and how now into the conversation about moving Jonah to center kind of originally, and how did he respond, to that initially?
Well, Jonah at the next level is not going to play on the edge more than likely, just because of some physical measurements. And at the next level, obviously when you get to that level, everyone has elite physical measurements that 98 to 99% of the time fit inside of what has been proven over the last 10 to 15 years of NFL football to be the measurements required to be really good at that level. And so for Jonah, that spot is more interior than it is exterior. And so when you move him interior, he's a highly intelligent player, maybe one of the most intelligent players I've ever had the opportunity to coach. And really that was the conversation. It was like, where's your future at? If you come back this year, the money's, maybe you're not making money in your bank account right now, but it's going to be in the future if you can go and show that you can play and perform interior-wise and be just as good as you were exterior-wise. I mean, you're talking about a guy that without the measurables, this is how good a football player Jonah Monheim is. You're talking about a guy without the measurables over the last 2 years, graded out win percentage, second only to Joe Alt at tackle in the entire country. So this guy shows up at spring ball and he's worked so hard at getting ready for center. It looks like he's been playing center for 3 years, but that's just who Jonah is. And to me, that's what's going to make him so attractive to the next level, because he will be, whatever he can be, he is going to be the best version of what he can be. He's going to show up for you every day and be a great player every day and be consistent. And, I'm really excited to see what he does this year at center. It's going to be fun.
When you say that, were there conversations, were there thoughts maybe that he was going to leave, hit the portal, go to the draft, what have you?
I don't think portal was an issue. Jonah Monheim's a USC Trojan, and he always will. There was no way. He's from Moore Park, California. He doesn't care anything else about any other school out there. He's a USC Trojan. So he loves this place. He loves Southern California, loves this state, and the people here. So that was not a conversation. I think it more was, is it my time and opportunity to try my hand at the NFL? And he handled it all the right way, because we had conversations. He was very upfront about what he was thinking. And we talked through it, we got through it, and this is the conclusion we came to together. And we're going to go chase it like crazy to make it successful.
When you guys
Jonas
moved
said
to
that last year it was the details as a team and maybe as an offensive line that held you guys back. When we watch you guys on game days, what are the details that we might be able to look out for to see that you guys are hitting that?
Well,
is it even possible on a game day? Because obviously we don't know the calls, but
yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
He zeroed in on that.
Yeah, it's hard, and I think what he's talking about is kind of the last little 10% of being good to great, and what that really means. Those margins for error get smaller the higher level you go, but we were probably just a few percentage points off, last year what we were the year before, and man, again, we go back to this, every year's different. You get back to it, and it's like you can't take anything for granted, and you got to go work a certain way every year to be the team and the unit that you want to be. And so, I felt like last year we had some moments in time. It's kind of crazy. If you looked at some of our stats up front, it wouldn't say what the narrative is around the offensive line, excuse me, right now. But we know, I would tell you that there was at least 2.5 games that we didn't play well enough for our team to win, and that's not the standard here. Our standard is to play well enough for the team to win in every game. So that's our goal this year. That's what he's talking about, and it ain't a lot. It's probably 10% of details. How do you see it on game day? I think more than anything, you'll just see it in results. Protection, opening holes in the run game, not jumping off sides. Right, and you'll always have some mistakes here and there. You're never perfect, but it's operating at a very high level, and so that's what we got to get back to.
When Elijah got moved to scout team, what was the message to him? Did you sit down with him and talk to him about, why that was happening, or was it kind of like, we'll test him and see how he responds, and he just responded?
I told him why we were moving him, because we wanted him to do what he did, and that was why we're sending him a scout team, that was to grow his competitive nature, and he did it. So, yeah, and he came back and he got it and he understood and he responded to the challenge.
How have you seen him kind of build on that through the summer and now into fall?
It's been good. I think one thing about competing at this level is always pushing yourself to be elite, and that gets really hard sometimes because you're competing more against the man in the mirror than you are against another player. But and little things in your technique that take it sounds crazy, but it gets so frustrating. I mean, you can relate it to golf. It's kind of like, man, I just can't quite get my hands or my swing or whatever that is to quite get to that spot, and you work on it like crazy, and then finally one day it clicks. But you might work on it for 2 or 3, 4 months before that happens. And so in some ways, offensive line technique's the same. Hopefully it doesn't take that long, but in some ways, some of these things can get pretty frustrating. You can work on them for several weeks before you can consistently doing it without thinking about it. And that's the big key to mastering a skill, is being able to do something, recall it without thinking about it, and when you need it in that split second of a moment. And so that's where his challenge is at now, and I think he'll attack that going forward.
What do you want to see in the moving right?
Consistency. Man, he has some really high-end moments, like really, really good. I just want him to push himself to be the same consistent player every day. And if he does that, he's going to be in really good position to be a great player for this team and then for his future too.
Have you seen maybe a mindset change from him that would allow that?
Yeah, huge mindset change. He's matured a ton in the last 2 years. I'm not going to go into detail on all those things, but he's overcome some personal things, and he has put some good habits in his life, some bad habits out, and man, that's easier said than done. We all know that. I mean, I'm really proud of where he's at. He's one of the guys in the room now that's gone from, gets question right 50% of the time to he's like 95% of the time, and he's leading by example, and he's doing a great job. So I'm really excited. I'm really hopeful and excited about his next step in his progression this year.
Were there direct conversations from you or Coach Riley with him about, hey, this is what's in front of you, this is an opportunity?
Oh yeah, we have a lot of direct conversations about things like that.
How much changes in the move from a hypermobile quarterback to not an immobile quarterback, but certainly a less mobile quarterback in Moss from an offensive line perspective?
I really honestly don't want my linemen thinking about that, so I don't address that with them. Really, that fits more in a scheme thing, maybe in what we might ask a certain player to do or not to do. From an overall umbrella standpoint, but that's not our job up front to think about that. Really, that becomes a little bit of a distraction. We're thinking about stuff like that. It's like our job is just to do our job like as best as we can and put that guy in position to make plays the best way he can do it. Yeah.
Moving Jonah inside this year, what does it allow you to do differently, and what does it force you to do differently from last year, especially in the run game?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So moving Jonah to center, what does it allow you to do compared to last year to this year? But also, what does it force you to do differently than what you would have done maybe with Leach?
Well, Jonah's a really good puller, so that's one thing that comes to mind that might be something that he could do a little more of. He's pulled a lot at tackle. We pull our tackles a lot in this offense, so there might be some opportunities for us there with him. Not being able to do anything, I don't see anything that we wouldn't be able to do with him. He's a really good football player. And we've had 2 really good players at that position the last 2 years, in Dedich and Nealon. So, man, I'm looking forward to seeing him pick up where they've left off the last couple of years.
It was a bumpy road for the run game towards the end of last season. what do you want to see differently, blocking-wise or attitude-wise from the group this year?
Well, I think at the end of the year, you know, just consistency and physicality, you know, and I felt like we got to a game or two at the end of the year, and we didn't trust our technique, you know, and you got to trust your training. If you start to question, man, how am I going to do this? Like, just go full speed and do it, and the way you've been taught to do it. And we had some positions that were struggling a little bit. We were moving some people around, and maybe that contributes to it a little, maybe it doesn't. But more than anything, man, you know, you can't, Coach Riley was talking about this morning, you can't play this game fearful. You can't play this game timid. You have to trust what your plan is and trust what you're going to do, and then go full speed to execute it, you know. And so I know if we do that, our run game will be where we want it to be.
I know last year it took a while for you to settle on a 5. Is that something you want to do sooner in camp or earlier in the season this year than last year?
Yes and no. I've played more than 5 guys before and had some really good lines doing that. But those other 2 to 3 guys that are playing, or 1, whoever that is, they had to be playing at a championship level. And so I think the challenge is you're trying to develop as many guys as you can that can play at a championship level to get to that point. So now, that being said, the flip side of that is there's a certain continuity that comes with 5 guys that operate together, think alike, see the things. Sometimes one of them grunts, you know, they don't even get the words out of their mouth, they just grunt, like, oh, I know what that grunt means, you know, or they just, you know, you see, here comes a blitz and you just hear a noise, but you know because you heard that noise from the guy beside you, he's seeing it too, you know, it's confirmation, because sometimes those things are happening really fast, like right before the snap, and it's loud, right? So I do think that there's a certain level of continuity that comes with the 5. So, you know, we just got to see where we're at. You know, I would, you know, the multiple linemen being able to play has been a lot fewer in my career than having the 5 guys that are the solid starters.
Is there a sense of difference going into this fall camp compared to last year? Not even at the top of the depth chart, but just guys not flipping positions, or guys who had played on the right now playing on the left. Jonah kind of flipping to... Yeah, I think we're going to try to... You always want, especially with young guys, you always want to try to get them to a spot and let them develop in that spot, because their footwork's the same every day, the calls are the same, things are happening on the same side of them. You know, where it be edge pressure for a right tackle, whatever that might be. Yes, we're going to try to have guys in place as soon as we can, working the positions that we think they're going to be at or backing up. Is there a young guy that sort of jumped out to you early and maybe made a...
Well, I thought spring is the last thing we had to go on. I thought that Tobias Raymond got a lot better. I thought he took some really big steps. Amos and Alani are right there. It's just consistency. It's like doing things the same way every time. But all 3 of those guys showed some real flashes during the spring.